The polyester pirate costume itched like hell, but that wasn't what bothered me most about Halloween night. What bothered me was watching my wife Alicia purr and stretch in that black Catwoman suit, her claws practically extended toward every guy at Richard's party except me. My name's Greg Morrison, and I manage logistics at Hartwell Industrial. Not glamorous, but it pays for our house on Maple Street and keeps Alicia in her boutique clothes. At least, I thought it did. Tonight, watching her slink around Richard's living room, I was starting to wonder what else I'd been paying for. "Nice costume, Greg," Richard called out, raising his beer. "Very authentic. You look like you just raided a ship." "Thanks," I muttered, adjusting the plastic sword at my hip, though I'm starting to feel more like I'm the one getting raided. Richard's wife, Nikki, shot me a look. She had that expression women get when they know something you don't, and they're debating whether to tell you or let you figure it out the hard way. Across the room, Alicia laughed at something Dominic Reeves said. He was dressed as Tarzan, which was perfect because the guy had the brain of an ape. All muscle, no sense. He worked at the factory and spent his evenings at Murphy's gym, sculpting his body like it was going to get him somewhere besides the local bar scene. "You two really think you can screw behind my back forever?" The words slipped out before I could stop them, cutting through the party chatter like a sword through silk. The room went quiet. Alicia's face flushed red beneath her cat mask. Dominic stepped forward, his chest puffed out like he was ready to beat it. "What did you just say?" Dominic's voice carried that edge guys get when they're caught doing something stupid. "You heard me, Tarzan." I stood up straighter, feeling the old boxing instincts kick in. "Nice muscle car, by the way. Compensating for something?" That's when he swung at me. But Dominic was drunk and clumsy, and I'd spent 2 years in amateur boxing before I got smart and focused on my career, instead of getting my face rearranged. I ducked, and his fist sailed past my ear. Then I planted my right hook square in his jaw. Chaos erupted. Alicia screamed. Susie, Dominic's wife and Alicia's best friend, tried to get between us, but it was too late. Half the party had their phones out, recording everything. "Greg, stop!" Alicia grabbed my arm. "You're embarrassing yourself." "I'm embarrassing myself?" I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "That's rich, coming from someone who's been sneaking around with Captain Caveman here." Dominic was on the floor, holding his jaw. The great Tarzan, brought down by a guy in a discount pirate costume. But I could see the wheels turning in his tiny brain, planning his comeback. "You're crazy," Alicia hissed. "Absolutely insane. There's nothing going on between us." "Right. And I suppose you two just happened to disappear into the bathroom together for 20 minutes to discuss the weather." Susie helped Dominic to his feet. She shot me a look that could have melted steel. "You've lost your mind, Greg. Dom and I were just talking about the party." "Sure you were." I pulled out my phone. "Funny thing about modern technology, Susie. Security cameras are everywhere these days." That got their attention. Richard stepped forward, his face pale. As the host, he knew exactly what I was talking about. His house had cameras in the hallway, the kitchen, everywhere except the bedrooms and bathrooms. But they covered the approaches to those rooms just fine. "Greg," Richard said carefully, "maybe we should all just calm down and—" "No." I looked around the room at all the faces staring at me. Some shocked, some amused, some already posting to social media. I'm done being calm. I'm done pretending everything's fine while my wife makes a fool of me. Alicia's mask had slipped, literally and figuratively. Her carefully applied makeup was smeared, and her eyes held a panic I'd never seen before. "We're going home," she said, grabbing her purse. "Right now, are we?" I smiled, and I could see it unnerved her. "Or are you going to Dominic's place to console him about his bruised jaw?" "I'm going home with my husband," she said loudly, for everyone to hear. "Because that's where I belong." But as we walked to the car, I caught her looking back at Dominic, and I saw him mouth something that looked a lot like "later." The drive home was silent except for the sound of Alicia's phone buzzing with notifications. Social media moves fast in a small town, and I had a feeling my Halloween punch was already making the rounds. "This isn't over," I said, as we pulled into our driveway. "You're right," Alicia replied, her voice cold as winter. "It's not." I woke up the next morning to the sound of my phone exploding with notifications. Apparently, someone had posted video of my confrontation with Dominic, and it was making the rounds on every local Facebook group and Instagram story. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was the comments. "Poor Greg. Didn't see it coming. Alicia's been at the gym a lot lately, if you know what I mean." Dom's been bragging about his personal training sessions for weeks, and then there were the memes. Someone had already photoshopped my pirate costume onto a picture of a sinking ship. Another showed Alicia and Dominic as cartoon characters with the caption, "When the cat's away, the ape will play." I scrolled through the posts, my anger building with each swipe. They weren't just mocking the situation, they were mocking me. Poor, clueless Greg, the last to know about his wife's affair. Alicia was still asleep, or pretending to be. I grabbed my coffee and headed to the garage, where I kept my workshop. It wasn't much, just a place to tinker with small engines and think. But right now, I needed to think more than I'd ever needed anything in my life. My phone rang. "Richard." "Greg, buddy, we need to talk." "About what?" "About how everyone in town knew my wife was cheating except me?" "About what you're planning to do next." His voice was serious. "Because whatever it is, you need to be smart about it." I met Richard at his brewery an hour later. The place was empty except for a few regulars nursing their morning beers and pretending they weren't listening to every word we said. "Show me the footage," I said. Richard hesitated. "Greg, maybe you don't want to see." "Show me." He pulled out his tablet and queued up the security footage from the night before. There it was, clear as day. Alicia and Dominic sneaking down the hallway toward the guest bathroom. The timestamp showed they were gone for 37 minutes. "There's more," Richard said quietly. He fast-forwarded to earlier in the evening. This is from about an hour before the party officially started. The footage showed Alicia arriving early, supposedly to help set up. But instead of heading to the kitchen, she went straight to the guest room where Dominic was already waiting. They didn't come out for 20 minutes. "How long has this been going on?" I asked. "I don't know for sure, but Nikki says Susie's been complaining about Dom working late and hitting the gym every day after work. Except the gym closes at 8, and he's never home before 10. I studied the footage, memorizing every detail. "Can you make me copies of these?" "Greg, what are you thinking?" "I'm thinking my wife made me look like an idiot in front of the whole town, and turnabout is fair play." Richard looked uncomfortable. "Just be careful, okay? Don't do anything you can't take back." I finished my beer and stood up. "Rich, they already did something I can't take back. Now it's my turn." On my way home, I stopped by Murphy's gym. Dominic's precious muscle car was parked outside, a cherry red Camaro that probably cost him 6 months' salary. I walked around it slowly, admiring the paint job, the custom rims, the vanity license plate that read "Did some force." Then I pulled out my keys. The scratch ran from the front bumper to the rear taillight, a nice clean line that would cost him at least $2,000 to fix. I left a note under his windshield wiper. "Hope your insurance covers cheating." When I got home, Alicia was in the kitchen, still in her robe, staring at her phone. "The whole town is talking about last night," she said without looking up. "Good. Maybe now everyone knows what kind of woman I married." She looked up then, her eyes flashing. "What kind of woman?" "Greg, nothing happened. You're paranoid and jealous and I have security footage that says otherwise." Her face went pale. "What footage?" I pulled out my phone and showed her a screenshot Richard had sent me. Alicia and Dominic in the hallway, his hand on her waist, her looking up at him like he was some kind of hero. "This is from Richard's security system. There's a lot more where this came from." Alicia stared at the image, her hands shaking slightly. "It's not what it looks like." "Really? Because it looks like my wife sneaking around with another man. It looks like the reason she's been working late and going to the gym and taking all those mysterious phone calls." "Greg, please." "Please what? Please pretend it never happened? Please go back to being the fool who doesn't notice his wife is screwing around?" I leaned against the counter, studying her face. "Those days are over, Alicia. The costume's off, and everyone can see what's underneath." She tried a different approach. "Even if something did happen, and I'm not saying it did, don't you think we should try to work this out? Go to counseling or something?" "Counseling?" I laughed. "You want to go to counseling so we can talk about your feelings for Dominic? So you can explain how it's really my fault you decided to cheat?" "That's not what I meant." "No, I know exactly what you meant. You meant you got caught, and now you want me to help you figure out how to make it my fault." I headed toward the door. "But I've got a better idea. How about you call Dominic and tell him his car needs some body work?" Her phone rang as I was leaving. I could hear her answer it, could hear Dominic's voice screaming through the speaker about his car. "Greg," she called after me. "Where are you going?" "To work," I said. Some of us still have jobs to worry about? But I wasn't going to work. I was going to pay a visit to Susie. Susie lived in the Pine Ridge apartment complex, a collection of 2-story buildings that housed most of the town's young couples and recent divorcees. I'd been there plenty of times for barbecues and game nights, back when I thought Susie was just Alicia's harmless best friend. I knocked on her door at 11 in the morning, knowing she'd be home. Susie worked part-time at the bank and didn't go in until noon on Fridays. She opened the door wearing yoga pants and a tank top, her blonde hair pulled back in a messy bun. When she saw me, her expression shifted from surprise to guilt to defiance in about 3 seconds. "Greg, what are you doing here?" "We need to talk, Susie. About last night. About a lot of things." She glanced around nervously, probably checking to see if any neighbors were watching. "I don't think that's a good idea. I think it's a great idea. Unless you want me to have this conversation in the parking lot where everyone can hear." She stepped aside reluctantly, and I walked into her living room. It was decorated in that shabby chic style that was popular a few years ago. All distressed wood and mason jar light fixtures. Pictures of her and Dominic covered the mantel, but I noticed they all looked at least a year old. "Dominic's pretty upset about his car," she said, trying to sound casual. "I bet he is. That was a nice paint job. Shame someone ruined it." "Greg, you can't just go around vandalizing people's property because you're angry." "Can't I? Seems like people in this town can go around doing whatever they want, cheating on their spouses, lying to their friends, making fools out of people who trust them." I sat down on her couch without being invited. "So tell me, Susie, how long have you known?" She perched on the edge of a chair, her hands fidgeting with a throw pillow. "Known what? Don't play stupid. It doesn't suit you. How long have you known about Alicia and your husband?" "There's nothing to know. You're imagining things." I pulled out my phone and showed her the security footage. "Am I imagining this too?" And Susie stared at the screen, her face crumbling. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. "How long?" I asked again. 3 months, she whispered. "Maybe 4. I wasn't sure at first. Dom started working late, going to the gym all the time. And Alicia, she was different. Happier, more secretive. And you didn't think to tell me?" What was I supposed to say? "Hey, Greg, I think our spouses are having an affair, but I don't have any proof." You would have thought I was crazy. So instead you decided to let me find out by walking in on them at a party. Susie's eyes flashed with anger. "I didn't plan that, and for the record, I tried to keep them apart last night. I knew it was a bad idea for them to be at the same party. But you didn't try very hard, did you? Because part of you wanted it to come out. Part of you wanted someone else to deal with the problem, so you wouldn't have to." She didn't deny it, which told me everything I needed to know. "Here's what's going to happen," I said, standing up. "You're going to help me." "Help you what?" "Get even. Your husband and my wife made fools out of both of us. Now we're going to return the favor." Susie shook her head. "I can't do that. Dom's still my husband, and Alicia's still my wife. But that doesn't mean we have to let them walk all over us." I leaned forward. "They humiliated us, Susie, in front of the whole town. Don't you want them to know how that feels?" She was quiet for a long moment, staring at the pictures on her mantel. "What did you have in mind?" "Nothing illegal, nothing violent, just public. Let everyone see them for what they really are." "And then what? We all get divorced and move on?" "That's up to you, but at least we'll have our dignity back." Susie looked at me for a long time, and I could see her weighing her options. Stay loyal to her cheating husband, or help the man who'd been wronged just as much as she had. "There's something you should know," she said finally, "about what they've been planning." "What kind of planning?" She got up and walked to her bedroom, returning with a manila folder. "Dom's been talking to a lawyer about divorce. He thinks he can claim you're abusive, that Alicia's afraid of you. They want to make it look like she had to seek comfort elsewhere because you were threatening her." I stared at the folder, feeling my anger shift into something colder and more focused. "They want to frame me." "The lawyer told Dom that if Alicia can prove you have anger management issues, she could get the house, alimony, everything. And last night's punch just gave them the evidence they needed." "What's in the folder?" "Copies of everything Dom's been collecting. Photos of bruises Alicia claims you gave her, though I know she got those from falling down the stairs when she was drunk last month. Statements from her friends about how controlling and jealous you are. Even a recording of you arguing with her about money." I opened the folder and flipped through the contents. It was all there, a carefully constructed case designed to paint me as an abusive husband and Alicia as a victim. The photos were particularly damaging. bruises on her arms and shoulders that I remembered her getting when she tripped in our garage, but which looked damning without context. Why are you showing me this? Because it's not right. You're not abusive, Greg. Stubborn and sarcastic, maybe, but not abusive. And Alicia, she's not the victim here. We are. Huh. I closed the folder and looked at Susie. Really looked at her. She was tired, I realized. Tired of pretending her marriage was fine. Tired of covering for her husband's lies. Tired of watching her best friend plot against someone who'd never done anything worse than work hard and trust the wrong people. So what do you say? I asked. Partners? She nodded slowly. Partners. But Greg? Yeah? When this is over, we're even. I help you expose them, and you leave me out of whatever comes next. Deal. We shook hands, and I left her apartment with the folder tucked under my arm. Driving home, I thought about Alicia's plan to destroy me in divorce court, to take everything I'd worked for and paint me as the villain in her story. But she'd made one crucial mistake. She'd underestimated me, and she was about to learn just how costly that mistake could be. The Fall Fest was Millbrook's biggest social event of the year, a weekend-long celebration that drew people from 3 counties. Main Street would be closed to traffic, lined with vendor booths selling everything from hand-carved furniture to kettle corn. There'd be live music, a beer garden, and enough gossip to fuel the town's rumor mill until Christmas. It was also the perfect place for a public confrontation. I spent the week preparing, gathering evidence, and planning my strategy like a military campaign. Susie proved to be a valuable ally, providing inside information about Alicia and Dominic's plans while maintaining her cover as the loyal friend and wife. They're meeting at the Riverside Motel on Saturday afternoon, she told me during one of our clandestine coffee meetings. Dom booked the room under a fake name, but I saw the confirmation email. How romantic. A Fleabag motel for their grand finale. Greg, what are you planning to do? Nothing illegal, I assured her. Just a little public education. The motel was a relic from the 1960s, the kind of place that rented rooms by the hour and didn't ask too many questions. It sat on the outskirts of town, surrounded by scrub pines and regret. Perfect for what I had in mind. I arrived early Saturday morning and had a conversation with the desk clerk, a kid named Tommy, who'd graduated high school with my nephew. For $50 and the promise of keeping his name out of it, Tommy agreed to give me the room number and look the other way when I implemented my plan. The room was on the 2nd floor, accessible by an external staircase that creaked with every step. I could see Dominic's newly repaired Camaro in the parking lot, which meant they were already inside. Perfect. I climbed the stairs quietly and listened at the door. I could hear voices inside, Alicia's laugh mixing with Dominic's deeper tones. They sounded relaxed, confident, completely unaware that their secret was about to become very public. I pulled out my phone and opened the live streaming app I'd downloaded earlier in the week. With a few taps, I was broadcasting to every social media platform I could think of, including the local Facebook groups that thrived on this kind of drama. Then I knocked on the door. Room service, I called out in a fake accent. We didn't order room service, Dominic's voice came through the door. Complimentary champagne from the management. I heard whispering, then footsteps. The door opened a crack, and Dominic's face appeared, suspicious and annoyed. There's no champagne, he started to say, then saw me. What the hell are you doing here? I pushed the door open and walked into the room, my phone held high to capture everything. Alicia was sitting on the bed in a hotel bathrobe, her face going white when she saw me. Surprise, I said to my growing online audience. Looks like I found my wife, and she's not where she said she'd be. Greg, stop, Alicia scrambled off the bed. Turn off the camera. Why? Embarrassed. You weren't embarrassed when you were planning to frame me for abuse. You weren't embarrassed when you were plotting to take my house and destroy my reputation. Dominic stepped forward, his fists clenched. You need to leave, now, or what? You'll hit me? Go ahead, Dominic. Show everyone what kind of man you really are. Hit me in front of all these witnesses. I gestured to my phone, where the viewer count was climbing rapidly. Comments were pouring in faster than I could read them, but I caught enough to know that half the town was watching. This is harassment, Alicia said, but her voice was shaking. I'm calling the police. Go ahead, call them. Tell them how your husband found you in a motel room with another man. I'm sure they'll be very sympathetic. I reached into my jacket and pulled out the manila folder Susie had given me. But while we're waiting for the cops, Why don't we talk about this? Your little plan to destroy me in divorce court? Alicia's face went ashen. I don't know what you're talking about. Really? Then you won't mind if I share some of these documents with our audience. I opened the folder and held up one of the photos. This is a picture of bruises on my wife's arms. Bruises she claims I gave her, but which actually came from her falling down the stairs when she was drunk. And that's not true, Alicia said, but her protest sounded weak even to her. And here's a statement from her friend claiming I'm controlling and jealous. Funny thing about that statement, it's dated 3 days ago, but it describes events from 6 months ago. Almost like someone was trying to build a case after the fact. Dominic lunged at me, trying to grab the phone, but I'd been expecting it. I stepped aside and let him crash into the dresser, sending the lamp crashing to the floor. Careful there, Tarzan, you're on camera. The viewer count had passed 500, and the comments were brutal. People I'd known for years were watching my marriage implode in real time, and they weren't holding back their opinions. You planned this, Alicia said, her voice breaking. You set us up. I didn't set you up. I just gave you enough rope to hang yourselves. I looked directly into the camera. Ladies and gentlemen, I present my wife and her boyfriend, the same woman who's been telling everyone I'm abusive and controlling, the same man who's been bragging about his conquests at Murphy's gym. That's enough, Dominic said, getting back to his feet. Turn off the camera and get out, or I'll make you get out. You'll make me? I laughed. Dom, you couldn't make me leave a restaurant if you were the health inspector. You're all muscle and no brain, which is probably why my wife likes you. She never was attracted to intelligence. That got him. He charged at me again, but this time I was ready. I grabbed a chair and held it between us, keeping the camera rolling as he tried to get around it. Look at him, folks. This is the man my wife left me for. Can't even handle a simple conversation without resorting to violence. Stop it, Alicia screamed. Just stop it. You're ruining everything. I'm ruining everything. I'm not the one who's been sneaking around for months. I'm not the one who planned to frame an innocent man for abuse. I'm not the one who made a mockery of my marriage vows. The room fell silent, except for the sound of Dominic's heavy breathing and the notifications from my phone, as more and more people joined the stream. Here's what's going to happen, I said, my voice calm and controlled. I'm going to leave now. You two can finish whatever this is. But tomorrow, everyone in town is going to know exactly what kind of people you are. And Alicia, you can forget about your little plan to take me to the cleaners in divorce court. I think this video will make an excellent exhibit for my lawyer. I backed toward the door, keeping the camera running. Oh, and Dom, you might want to check your car before you leave. Motels like this, well, let's just say the parking lot security isn't great. I left them there, Alicia crying and Dominic raging, and walked calmly down the stairs. In the parking lot, I ended the live stream and checked the damage. Over 800 viewers, hundreds of comments, and dozens of shares. By tomorrow morning, everyone in 3 counties would have seen my wife's betrayal, but I wasn't done yet, not by a long shot. The video went viral overnight. By Sunday morning, it had been shared across every social media platform and forwarded through every group chat in town. My phone was buzzing constantly with messages from friends, coworkers, and people I barely knew, all wanting to know if I was okay or offering their support. More importantly, Alicia's reputation was in ruins. I spent Sunday morning at Richard's Brewery, watching the fallout unfold online while nursing a beer and fielding calls from reporters. Apparently, the story had caught the attention of some regional news outlets who were framing it as a cautionary tale about social media and public shaming. You realize there's no going back from this, Richard said, refilling my glass. Whatever happens with your marriage, this is going to follow both of you for years. Good, I said. Let it follow us. Let everyone remember what happens when you try to destroy an innocent person. Nikki came over from behind the bar, her expression unreadable. Alicia called this morning. She wants to talk to you. I bet she does. What did you tell her? That you weren't taking calls. But Greg, you're going to have to face her eventually. You live in the same house. Not for much longer. The brewery door opened, and Susie walked in. She looked terrible, pale, exhausted, like she hadn't slept in days. She spotted me at the bar and walked over slowly. We need to talk, she said. I followed her to a corner booth, away from the other customers. She sat down heavily and stared at her hands. Dom left, she said finally. Packed a bag this morning and moved in with his brother in Portland. Said he couldn't handle the embarrassment. And how do you feel about that? Relieved, mostly, but also scared. Everyone knows what happened now. Everyone knows our marriage was a joke. Everyone knows your husband was a cheater. That's not the same thing." She looked up at me. "Is it? Because right now, it feels like the whole town is judging all of us. You, me, Alicia, Dom, we're all just characters in their entertainment." Ah, I could see her point. The comments on the video had been brutal, not just toward Alicia and Dominic, but toward me as well. Some people were calling me a hero for exposing the truth. Others were saying I was vindictive and cruel for humiliating my wife so publicly. "Do you regret it?" I asked. "Helping you?" "No, they deserve to be exposed. But I regret that it had to happen this way. I regret that our private pain became public spectacle." Before I could respond, the brewery door opened again, and Alicia walked in. She looked around the room until she spotted me, then walked over with determined steps. Conversations stopped as people recognized her from the video. "We need to talk," she said, her voice steady, but her eyes red from crying. "I don't think we do." "Greg, please, not here, not in front of everyone." I looked around the room at all the faces watching us, waiting to see what would happen next. Part of me wanted to make another scene, to humiliate her even further. But another part of me was tired of being the center of attention. "Fine," I said, "but not at home. Somewhere neutral." We ended up at the town park, sitting on a bench overlooking the pond, where we'd had our first date 15 years ago. It felt appropriate, somehow, to end things where they'd begun. I'm sorry," Alicia said. "I know that doesn't mean much now, but I am. Sorry for cheating, or sorry for getting caught. Both, all of it. The whole thing was stupid and selfish and wrong." I studied her face, looking for signs of deception. But she seemed genuinely remorseful, which somehow made it worse. "Why him?" I asked. "Of all the people in this town, why Dominic?" She was quiet for a long time, staring out at the water. "Because he made me feel young again. Because he paid attention to me in a way you hadn't in years. Because he made me feel like I was worth pursuing. And I didn't?" "Not lately, no. When was the last time you told me I looked beautiful? When was the last time you planned a surprise for me? Or brought me flowers? Or did anything that showed you were thinking about me?" I wanted to argue, but she had a point. Somewhere along the way, our marriage had become routine. We'd stopped trying to impress each other, stopped making an effort. "That doesn't excuse what you did," I said. "No, it doesn't, but it explains it." We sat in silence for a while, watching ducks paddle across the pond. Finally, Alicia spoke again. "The lawyer thing, that was Dom's idea. He said if we were going to be together, we needed to make sure you couldn't cause problems for us financially. So you decided to destroy my reputation instead." I didn't want to, but he convinced me it was the only way. He said you'd try to take everything out of spite, and you believed him. I wanted to believe him. It made it easier to justify what we were doing. Another long silence. Then Alicia reached into her purse and pulled out a manila envelope. "What's that?" "Divorce papers. I had them drawn up yesterday, after the video came out. No contest, 50-50 split of assets, no alimony claims from either side." I took the envelope, but didn't open it. "Just like that? Just like that? I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, and I'm not asking for it. But I don't want to drag this out and hurt us both even more. What about the abuse allegations?" "Withdrawn. I called the lawyer this morning and told him I was dropping the whole thing. There was never any abuse, and everyone knows it now." I opened the envelope and scanned the documents. They were straightforward, fair even. No hidden clauses or attempts to screw me over. "Where will you go?" "My sister's, for now. Maybe somewhere else eventually. I can't stay in this town, not after everything that's happened. And Dominic is out of the picture, permanently. Turns out he's not so interested in being with me when it means dealing with consequences." I folded the papers and put them back in the envelope. "I'll have my lawyer look these over, but they seem fair." "Thank you." We stood up to leave, and for a moment, we just looked at each other. 15 years of marriage, reduced to a stack of legal documents and a viral video. "Greg? Yeah? For what it's worth, you didn't deserve what we did to you. You're a good man, and you deserved better." She walked away then, leaving me alone on the bench with the divorce papers and the wreckage of our life together. I should have felt victorious. I'd exposed the truth, gotten my revenge, and come out ahead in the divorce. Instead, I felt empty. But as I watched Alicia disappear around the corner, heading toward an uncertain future in a town that would never forget her mistakes. I realized something important. I was free. Free from the lies, free from the pretense, free from trying to save a marriage that had been over long before I caught them together. The costume was finally off, and everyone could see what was underneath, including me. And for the first time in months, that felt like enough. 6 months later, I was sitting in the same booth at Richard's brewery, but everything else had changed. The divorce was final, the house was sold, and I'd taken a job managing logistics for a company in Portland. Not far enough to escape my reputation entirely, but far enough to start over. Susie had moved too, taking a job at a bank in Augusta. We'd stayed in touch, bonded by our shared experience of betrayal and revenge. She was doing well, she said, learning to be single again after years of a marriage that had been built on lies. Dominic had disappeared entirely, last seen heading south toward Boston with his tail between his legs. His job at the factory had been eliminated in a restructuring, though everyone knew the real reason. Companies don't like employees who become local scandals. And Alicia? She'd moved to Florida, according to her sister. Started over with a new name and a new story, trying to escape the viral video that had defined her final days in Millbrook. The video itself had mostly faded from public attention, replaced by newer scandals and fresher gossip. But it was still out there, a permanent record of the night everything fell apart. "Any regrets?" Richard asked, refilling my beer. I thought about it. The whole thing had been messy, public, and probably more vindictive than necessary. But it had also been honest, which was more than I could say for my marriage. "No," I said finally. "No regrets." And I meant it. Sometimes the truth is ugly, and sometimes revenge is the only justice you're going to get. But at least it's real. At least it's honest. And sometimes that's enough. Dagon Herstopper. October 23, 2025, 11 hours 49 minutes and 20 seconds.